The cargo ship Meridian's Edge moved through the dark space between stars like a metal whale swimming through an endless ocean. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars drift past on the main screen. His fingers drummed against the armrest as he checked their course for the 10th time that morning. "We're making good time, Captain," said Lisa Kane from the navigation station. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the standard blue uniform of the Terran merchant fleet. "Should reach the Outer Rim colonies in 3 days." Jake nodded and looked back at the cargo manifest on his tablet. 50,000 doses of experimental medicine filled their hold. Each dose could save a life on the plague-stricken worlds they were heading to. The sickness had already killed over 2 million people across 6 colonies. Without this medicine, millions more would die. "Danny, how are the engines running?" Jake called to the engineering station. Danny Price looked up from his control panel. The young engineer had grease on his hands from working on the backup systems all morning. "Running smooth as silk, Captain. The new upgrades are working better than expected." Amy Ross turned from her communications console. "Captain, I'm getting some strange readings on the long-range sensors. Looks like a ship is following us." Jake's stomach tightened. Pirates were common in this part of space. The shipping lanes were poorly patrolled, and cargo ships like his were easy targets. But this cargo was too important to lose. "What kind of ship?" he asked. Amy's fingers moved across her controls. "Big one. Looks like a Zephyrin war cruiser. They're not responding to my hails." Jake cursed under his breath. The Zephyrins were bad news. They were a warrior race that looked down on humans as weak newcomers to space. Their ships were heavily armed, and their crews were trained for battle from birth. "How far away are they?" Jake asked. "About 2 hours at their current speed," Amy replied. "They're definitely following us, Captain." Jake stood up and walked to the front of the bridge. He looked out at the stars and thought about his options. They could try to run, but the war cruiser was faster. They could call for help, but the nearest patrol ship was days away. Or they could fight, but a cargo ship against a war cruiser was suicide. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "maybe we should just give them what they want." Jake turned to look at his crew. Lisa was young, maybe 25, and this was only her 2nd year on a cargo ship. Danny was even younger, fresh out of engineering school. Amy had more experience, but she had never faced pirates before. "Those medicines are for dying children," Jake said. "For mothers and fathers and grandparents who are counting on us. We don't give up cargo that saves lives." "But Captain," Danny said, "we're just a cargo ship. We don't have weapons." Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Every ship has weapons if you know how to use them." The crew looked confused, but Jake did not explain. They did not know about his past. They did not know that before he became a cargo captain, he had spent 8 years in the Terran Defense Force. They did not know that he had fought in the Centauri Wars, where human soldiers had to be creative to survive against superior alien technology. "Amy, open a channel to that war cruiser," Jake ordered. "Channel open, Captain." The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the Zephyrin ship. The alien who appeared was huge, even for a Zephyrin. He stood over 7 feet tall with dark green skin and natural armor plates covering his chest and arms. His eyes were yellow and cold. "I am Commander Vextar of the war cruiser Death's Edge," the alien said in perfect English. His voice was deep and threatening. "You will surrender your cargo and prepare to be boarded." Jake stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the merchant vessel Meridian's Edge. We're carrying medical supplies to plague victims. Find someone else to rob." Vextar laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. "Medical supplies? How touching. The weak humans trying to save the weak humans. Your cargo will bring a good price on the black market. These medicines aren't for sale. Jake said firmly. People are dying. People die every day, Vexstar replied. It makes no difference to me. You have 1 minute to surrender, or I will take your cargo from your dead hands. The screen went dark. Jake turned to his crew, who were staring at him with wide eyes. Captain, Lisa whispered, he's going to kill us. Jake walked back to his command chair and sat down. He pulled up several control panels that his crew had never seen before. Hidden systems that came with all merchant ships, but that most captains never learned to use. Amy, seal all the blast doors except for sections 3 and 7. Leave those open. Captain, what are you doing? Amy asked. Danny, I need you to reroute power from the cargo bay lighting to the emergency defense grid. We have a defense grid? Danny asked, surprised. Lisa, plot a course that takes us through that asteroid field ahead. Make it look like we're trying to run. But Captain, Lisa said, that field is too dangerous. We could hit something. Jake's fingers moved across his control panels, activating systems that had been sleeping since the ship was built. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. On the main screen, they could see the Zephyrin war cruiser getting bigger as it approached. It was 3 times the size of their cargo ship, with weapon ports along its hull and armor plating that could stop almost any attack. Incoming message from the war cruiser, Amy reported. Put it through. Vexstar appeared on the screen again. This time he was smiling, showing rows of sharp teeth. Your time is up, human. Prepare to die. One question before you start shooting, Jake said calmly. How many humans have you killed before? Vexstar looked surprised by the question. What does it matter? Just curious, Jake replied. Because you're about to find out why we survived long enough to reach the stars. Jake cut the transmission and turned to his crew. Everyone hold on. This is going to get rough. The Meridian's edge suddenly changed course, diving toward the asteroid field at maximum speed. The war cruiser followed, firing plasma bolts that lit up the dark space around them. They're gaining on us, Lisa reported, her voice tight with fear. Good, Jake said. Let them get closer. Captain, you're scaring us, Amy said. What's your plan? Jake looked at his crew and saw the fear in their eyes. They were good people, but they had never faced real danger before. They did not understand that sometimes the only way to save lives was to risk everything. The plan is simple, Jake said. We're going to show Commander Vexstar that he picked the wrong ship to attack. And when we're done, he's going to wish he had stayed home today. The war cruiser fired again, and this time the blast hit their rear shields. The ship shook, and warning lights flashed on the control panels. Shields down to 60%, Danny reported. Jake's hands moved across his controls, preparing systems that his crew did not even know existed. Don't worry, he said quietly. The real fight hasn't even started yet. Outside, the Zephyrin war cruiser closed in for the kill, not knowing that they were about to face something they had never encountered before. A human who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Commander Vexstar stood on the bridge of his war cruiser, watching the human cargo ship try to escape into the asteroid field. His yellow eyes gleamed with pleasure as he saw the smaller ship dodge between the floating rocks. Humans always ran. When faced with superior force, it was their nature. Pathetic, he muttered to his second-in-command, a younger Zephyrin named Crixel. Look how they scurry like frightened insects. Crixel nodded, his own armor plates gleaming under the bridge. Lights. Should we destroy them now, Commander? Our plasma cannons could turn that ship into space dust in seconds. Vexstar raised a clawed hand. No, I want that cargo intact. Medical supplies bring good money on the black market, especially when desperate. Colonies are willing to pay anything for them. He smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Besides, I want to see the fear in their eyes when we board their ship. On the tactical display, The human ship appeared as a small red dot weaving between the asteroids. The war cruiser followed easily, its advanced sensors tracking every move. Vexstar had hunted dozens of ships through asteroid fields before. Rocks provided no real protection against a properly equipped warship. "Sir," called the weapons officer from his station, "we have clear shots available. Their rear shields are already weakened from our last attack." "Hold fire," Vexstar ordered. "Prepare the boarding shuttles instead. I want 3 full squads of Marines ready to launch in 5 minutes." The bridge crew moved quickly to carry out his orders. Vexstar walked to the large window at the front of the bridge and watched the chase unfold. The human ship was fast for a cargo vessel, but it was still no match for a Zephyrin war cruiser. "Commander," the communications officer reported, "the human ship is sending out distress signals." "Let them," Vexstar laughed. "The nearest patrol ship is days away. By the time help arrives, we will be long gone with their precious cargo." In the lower decks of the war cruiser, 90 Zephyrin Marines prepared for battle. Each warrior stood 7 feet tall and weighed over 300 pounds. Their natural armor plates could stop most small weapons, and their enhanced muscles could crush human bones with ease. They wore additional battle armor and carried plasma rifles that could melt through steel. Squad leader Thokener checked his weapon one final time. He had been fighting for over 20 years and had boarded hundreds of ships. Human vessels were always the easiest targets. The soft-skinned aliens had no real warrior tradition and usually surrendered without a fight. "Listen up," Thokener told his squad. "This is a simple cargo ship with a crew of maybe 6 humans. They have been trying to run instead of fight, which proves they are cowards. We go in fast and hard, secure the bridge and cargo bay, and drag any survivors back for questioning." The younger Marines nodded eagerly. Most of them had never fought humans before, but they had heard the stories. Humans were weak creatures who depended on technology instead of strength. They built flimsy ships and hired others to do their fighting for them. "What about weapons?" asked one of the younger warriors. "Humans on cargo ships rarely carry anything more dangerous than a stun pistol," Thokener replied. "Their own military is pathetic compared to true warriors. We will be done in minutes." Back on the bridge, Vexstar watched as his prey finally made a mistake. The human ship tried to thread between 2 large asteroids, but scraped against one of them. Sparks flew from the damaged hull, and the ship's speed decreased noticeably. "Perfect," Vexstar said. "Now they are wounded prey. Move us into boarding." Position. The war cruiser accelerated through the asteroid field with practiced ease. Zephyrin ships were built for combat, with heavy armor and powerful engines. A few floating rocks posed no threat to a vessel designed to survive space battles. "Boarding shuttles launching now," reported the tactical officer. 3 small but heavily armed shuttles detached from the war cruiser and flew toward the damaged cargo ship. Each shuttle carried 30 Marines and enough firepower to blast through the cargo ship's hull if needed. Vexstar activated the ship's communication system to speak directly to the human captain. "This is your final warning, Captain Morrison. Surrender now, and your crew will be allowed to live. Continue to resist, and I will order my Marines to kill everyone aboard your ship." The response came quickly. "This is Morrison. I have a better idea. Why don't you turn around and find some other ship to bother? These medicines are going to people who need them." Vexstar's eyes narrowed in anger. The human was still defying him, even with 3 squads of elite Marines approaching his ship. Such arrogance would need to be punished severely. "You have made your choice," Vexstar snarled into the communicator. "My Marines will show you what happens to those who defy the Zephyrin Empire." On the first boarding shuttle, Thokener watched as they approached the cargo ship's docking bay. The human vessel looked even more pathetic up close. Its hull was old and scarred from years of use, and the recent asteroid damage had torn several plates loose. "Scanners show minimal life signs," reported the shuttle pilot. "Looks like most of the crew is hiding in the upper sections." "Cowards," muttered one of the younger Marines. "They abandon their posts at the first sign of danger." Thokener smiled grimly. "It will make our job easier. Dock us with their cargo bay. We will secure the valuable goods first, and hunt down the crew at our leisure." The shuttle attached to the cargo ship with a loud clang. Cutting torches began burning through the outer hull to create an entry point. Within moments, the Marines would be inside the human vessel. "Remember," Thokener told his squad, "humans are clever but weak. They might try to trick us with words or hiding places, but they cannot stand against superior warriors. Stay alert and show no mercy." The cutting was finished, and a section of the hull fell away with a crash. Thokener was the first through the opening, his plasma rifle ready for action. Behind him, 29 other Marines poured into the cargo bay. The space was larger than expected, filled with rows of sealed containers marked with medical symbols. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows between the cargo stacks, and the air had a metallic smell that all human ships seemed to share. "Spread out," Thokener ordered. "Secure all exits and check for hidden defenders." The Marines moved through the cargo bay with professional efficiency. They had done this hundreds of times before on dozens of different ships. The routine was always the same: secure the area, find the crew, take control of the vessel. But something felt different about this ship. The cargo bay was too quiet, and the shadows seemed deeper than they should be. Thokener had learned to trust his instincts over the years, and right now they were telling him to be careful. "Squad 2 report," he called into his communicator. "We have breached the lower engineering section," came the reply. "No resistance encountered. The area appears to be abandoned. Squad 3 docked with the upper hull near what looks like the bridge section. Beginning breach now." Thokener nodded and continued moving through the cargo bay. Maybe his instincts were wrong. Maybe this was just another routine boarding of another cowardly human crew. But 20 years of combat had taught him that easy missions could turn deadly in an instant. "Sir," called one of his Marines from across the bay, "I found something strange over here." Thokener moved toward the Marine's position, stepping carefully between the cargo containers. "What is it?" "These medical supplies, sir. The containers are sealed with military-grade locks." That seems unusual for civilian cargo. Before Thokener could respond, the lights in the cargo bay suddenly went out, plunging the Marines into complete darkness. The cargo bay plunged into complete darkness. Squad leader Thokener immediately activated his helmet's night vision and saw his Marines stumbling around in confusion. Their heavy breathing echoed through the communication system. "Calm down," Thokener ordered. "It is just a power failure. Activate your emergency lights." 29 beams of light cut through the darkness as the Marines switched on their weapon-mounted flashlights. The beams danced across the cargo containers and metal walls, creating moving shadows that seemed to shift and writhe. "Must be damage from the asteroid collision," said one of the younger Marines. "Probably knocked out their electrical systems." Thokener was not so sure. He had been fighting for too long to believe in coincidences. The lights had gone out just as they were discovering something unusual about the cargo. In his experience, humans were cowardly, but they could be cunning when cornered. "Stay alert," he commanded. "Move in pairs and watch each other's backs. Something does not feel right about this." The Marines began advancing through the cargo bay toward the exit that led to the ship's main corridors. Their plasma rifles swept back and forth, searching for any sign of movement. The cargo containers provided plenty of hiding places, but the Marines were trained to deal with ambushes. Squad 2 Report your status. Thokener called into his communicator. Static filled his helmet speakers. Then a voice came through, faint and crackling. Squad 2 here. We have reached the engineering section, but the lights are out here too. Some kind of mechanical noise coming from deeper in the ship. What kind of noise? Sounds like machinery moving. Heavy stuff. Could be the humans trying to dump their cargo overboard. Thokener cursed. If the humans were destroying the valuable medical supplies, this whole mission would be a waste. Move faster. Secure that cargo before they can damage it. Squad 3, what is your position? He asked. No answer came. Thokener tried again. Squad 3, respond immediately. Still nothing. His night vision showed his own Marines spreading out through the cargo bay, but he had lost contact with 1/3 of his assault force. That was not normal for a simple boarding operation. Sir, called one of his Marines from near the exit door, this passage leads to the main corridor. Should we proceed? Do it, Thokener replied. But watch for traps. These humans might be more clever than we expected. The Marine reached for the door controls, but nothing happened when he pressed the button. He tried again, then looked back at his squad leader. Door is not responding, sir. Must be the power failure. Use the manual override, Thokener ordered. The Marine found the emergency handle and pulled hard. The heavy metal door slid open with a grinding sound. Beyond lay a corridor lit only by red emergency lighting that cast everything in an eerie glow. Looks clear, the Marine reported. 2 Marines moved into the corridor while the others provided cover. Their flashlight beams revealed a normal ship's passageway with doors leading to various compartments. Nothing seemed dangerous or unusual. Advance, Thokener commanded. The squad moved forward in formation, their boots clanging on the metal floor. The corridor stretched ahead for about 50 meters before turning left toward what their ship schematics showed was the bridge section, halfway. Down the passage, the Marine in front suddenly stopped. Sir, there is something blocking the path ahead. Thokener moved up to see what the problem was. A heavy blast door had dropped from the ceiling, completely sealing the corridor. The metal barrier looked thick enough to stop their plasma rifles. When did that come down? He asked. I do not know, sir. It was not there a moment ago. Thokener felt his first real stab of unease. Blast doors did not drop by themselves, even during power failures. Someone was controlling the ship's systems, and that someone was watching their every move. Back to the cargo bay, he ordered. We will find another route. But when they turned around, another blast door had sealed the corridor behind them. They were trapped in a 50-meter section of hallway with no way forward or back. This is impossible, muttered one of the Marines. The power is supposed to be out. Thokener tried his communicator again. Squad 2, we need immediate assistance. We are trapped in corridor section 7. Only Static answered him. Either his communications were being jammed, or something had happened to the other squads. Both possibilities were troubling. Sir, said the Marine next to him, look at the walls. Thokener turned his flashlight toward the corridor walls and saw something that made his blood run cold. Small panels were sliding open all along the passage, revealing dark openings that had not been there before. The ship itself was changing around them. What kind of cargo vessel has hidden passages? Asked one of the younger Marines, his voice tight with fear. Before anyone could answer, a voice echoed through the corridor. It came from speakers hidden in the walls, and it belonged to the human captain they had been chasing. Attention Zephyrin boarding parties, Captain Morrison said calmly. You are now inside a Terran merchant vessel, equipped with standard defensive systems. I strongly suggest you return to your shuttles and leave my ship immediately. Thokener stepped forward and shouted at the ceiling. We are Zephyrin warriors. Your tricks do not frighten us. Surrender now, and we might let your crew live." Morrison's laugh echoed through the corridor. "You know what your problem is? You think this is just a cargo ship. You think I am just a merchant captain. You think humans are weak because we prefer trade to war. You are weak," Thokener snarled, "hiding behind machinery instead of fighting like warriors." "Maybe," Morrison replied. "But you made one big mistake when you decided to attack this particular ship." "What mistake?" Thokener demanded. "You threatened medical supplies that are going to save children's lives. And I spent 8 years in the Terran Defense Force learning how to deal with bullies who threaten innocent people." The corridor suddenly filled with a strange humming sound. The walls began to vibrate, and small objects started falling from the ceiling. Thokener looked up and saw that the air vents were opening. "Gas attack," he shouted. "Seal your helmets." The Marines quickly activated their suits' life support systems, but the gas was not what they expected. Instead of poison, a thick fog poured from the vents and filled the corridor. Even with night vision, they could barely see 2 meters in any direction. "Spread out," Thokener ordered. "Do not let them separate us." But it was too late. The fog was so thick that each Marine became isolated in his own small bubble of visibility. Thokener could hear his soldiers moving around him, but he could not see them clearly. Then the sound started. Soft footsteps echoed through the corridor, but they seemed to come from everywhere at once. The Marines spun around, trying to track the movement, but their flashlights only showed swirling fog. "Contact," shouted one Marine. "I see movement." To my left, plasma fire lit up the corridor as the soldier fired at shadows. Other Marines joined in, their weapons creating brief flashes of light in the fog. But they were shooting at nothing, wasting their ammunition on empty air. "Stop firing," Thokener commanded. "You are shooting at nothing." That was when the first Marine disappeared. One moment Thokener could hear him breathing over the communication system, and the next moment there was only silence. The Marines' flashlight fell to the floor and rolled away into the fog. "Jektar report?" Thokener called. No answer came. 2 minutes later, another Marine vanished without a sound. Then another. Thokener realized with growing horror that something was moving through the fog, picking off his warriors one by one, and none of them could see what it was. "Form a circle," he shouted desperately. "Back to back. Do not let anything get between us." But the remaining Marines were panicking now. These were warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never faced an enemy they could not see or understand. The fog seemed to swallow their lights and muffle their voices. Captain Morrison's voice came through the speakers again. "Calm and patient. You can still leave. Just go back to your shuttles and fly away. No one else has to get hurt." Thokener raised his rifle toward the ceiling and fired several shots. "Show yourself, coward. Fight like a warrior." "I am fighting," Morrison replied softly. "This is how humans fight when someone threatens innocent lives. We use every advantage we have." Another Marine disappeared into the fog. Then another. Thokener was beginning to understand that they were not fighting a cowardly merchant captain. They were fighting something much more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Commander Vextar paced back and forth on his bridge, his yellow eyes fixed on the tactical display. 20 minutes had passed since his Marines had boarded the human cargo ship, and something was very wrong. None of his 3 squads were responding. "To communications." "Sir," called the communications officer, "I am still getting nothing from the boarding parties. All channels are silent." Vextar's claws scraped against his armor plates as his hands clenched into fists. 90 elite warriors did not simply vanish without a trace. Either the humans had some kind of jamming technology, or his Marines were dead. "Weapons officer," he barked, "target that cargo ship's engines. If my Marines are dead, I will blast that vessel into pieces." Sir, the weapons officer replied hesitantly, our boarding shuttles are still attached to their hull. If we fire, we will destroy our own craft. Vextar snarled in frustration. The human captain had somehow turned this simple raid into a disaster. A few minutes ago, he had been looking forward to an easy victory and valuable cargo. Now he was losing ships and warriors to what should have been helpless prey. Launch 2 more shuttles, he ordered. Send backup Marines to support the boarding parties. Sir, said his second-in-command Krixau, we only have 30 Marines left aboard the ship. If something has happened to the first wave, maybe we should retreat and call for reinforcements. Vextar turned on the younger officer with rage in his eyes. Retreat? From a single human cargo ship? I would rather die than face such shame. He pointed at the tactical display. That vessel contains valuable medical supplies and a crew that has made fools of us. We will take it apart piece by piece if necessary. On the Meridian's edge, Captain Jake Morrison moved through the ship's service tunnels like a ghost. He had spent the last 20 minutes systematically hunting down the Zephyrin Marines, using every trick he had learned during 8 years of military service. The aliens were good fighters, but they had no experience with human defensive systems. Terran ships were designed to be converted into fortresses during emergencies. Every cargo vessel had hidden passages, emergency bulkheads, and automated defense systems that most alien species never suspected. Jake reached a junction in the tunnel system and checked his handheld scanner. 3 more Zephyrin Marines were trapped in Section 5, and 2 others were wandering around the medical bay trying to find a way out. He had already dealt with most of the first boarding party using non-lethal methods, but these aliens were starting to damage his ship. Amy, he spoke into his communicator, how are you and the others doing in the secure section? Amy Ross's voice came back immediately. We are fine, Captain. Danny has been monitoring the ship's systems, and Lisa is tracking the remaining intruders. But Jake, there are 2 more shuttles approaching from the war cruiser. Jake cursed quietly. More Marines meant more danger to his crew and the precious medical cargo. He was going to have to escalate his response. Danny, he called, activate the cargo bay's industrial loading systems. Full automatic mode. Captain, are you sure? Danny's voice sounded worried. Those loading arms are designed to move 20-ton containers. They could crush anything that gets in their way. That is the idea, Jake replied grimly. These aliens want to play rough, so we will play rough. In the cargo bay, the 2 new shuttles had just finished cutting through the hull when massive mechanical arms suddenly came to life. The loading system was designed to move heavy cargo containers with precise computer control, but Jake had reprogrammed it for a different purpose. The first shuttle was still attached to the hull when a loading arm swung around and struck it. With tremendous force, the armored craft crumpled like paper and was torn loose from the ship. 20 Zephyrin Marines died instantly as their shuttle tumbled away into space. The second shuttle tried to back away, but another loading arm caught it before the pilot could escape. The mechanical limb crushed the shuttle's engines and left it floating helplessly near the cargo ship. On the war cruiser's bridge, Vextar watched in shock as his backup shuttles were destroyed in seconds. The tactical display showed both craft as dead signals, their life support systems offline. Impossible, he whispered. It is just a cargo ship. How can they have such weapons? Krixel stepped forward carefully. Sir, perhaps we should consider that this is not an ordinary merchant vessel. The humans might have military upgrades we do not know about. Vextar's rage exploded. I do not care what upgrades they have. No human vessel can stand against a Zephyrin war cruiser. He turned to his weapons officer. Charge the main plasma cannons. We will destroy that ship and everything on it. But sir, the weapons officer protested, the medical supplies. They are worth millions of credits on the black market. I do not care about profit anymore, Vextar snarled. I want that human captain dead, even if I have to vaporize his entire ship to do it. The war cruiser's main weapons began to glow with deadly energy. The massive plasma cannons could punch through the armor of battleships and would turn a cargo vessel into molten metal in seconds. Jake Morrison felt the Meridian's edge shudder as the Zephyrin ship locked targeting sensors onto his hull. He knew what was coming next. The aliens had given up trying to capture his cargo and decided to destroy him instead. Amy, he called over the communicator, get ready to send a message on all emergency frequencies. Tell everyone that Commander Vextar of the war cruiser, Death's Edge, is about to murder innocent civilians and destroy medical supplies meant for plague victims. Already done, Captain, Amy replied. The message is broadcasting on every channel. Jake smiled grimly. Even if the war cruiser destroyed his ship, the whole galaxy would know what Vextar had done. The Zephyrin commander's reputation would be ruined forever. But Jake Morrison had not survived 8 years of war by giving up when things looked hopeless. He still had one card left to play, and it was time to use it. Danny, he called, remember those engine modifications you installed last month? The ones that were supposed to be for emergency use only? Yes, sir, Danny replied nervously. But, Captain, those modifications were never tested at full power. They could overload the entire ship. Better than being turned into space dust, Jake said. Activate them now. Full power to engines and maneuvering thrusters. Deep in the Meridian's Edge's engine room, systems that had never been used at maximum capacity suddenly roared to life. The cargo ship's engines were designed for steady, reliable transport between star systems. But with Danny's modifications, they could produce 3 times their normal power output for short periods. The Meridian's Edge suddenly accelerated like a fighter craft instead of a lumbering cargo hauler. The ship spun around the asteroids with impossible speed and agility, moving in ways that should have been impossible for a vessel of its size and design. On the war cruiser's bridge, Vextar stared in disbelief as his target suddenly became a dancing, weaving nightmare that his gunners could not track. How is it moving like that? Crixel asked in amazement. I do not know, Vextar admitted, but it does not matter. Even with enhanced speed, they cannot escape our firepower forever. The war cruiser fired its main cannons, sending bolts of superheated plasma toward the cargo ship. But Jake Morrison was no longer where the aliens expected him to be. The Meridian's Edge twisted between the asteroid field like a living thing, using the floating rocks for cover. Sir, the tactical officer reported, we have lost target lock. The cargo ship is moving too fast and using the asteroids to block our sensors. Vextar's eyes narrowed as he realized what the human captain was doing. He is leading us deeper into the asteroid field, trying to use the rocks against us. Should we pursue? Asked the pilot. Vextar looked at the tactical display and saw his war cruiser moving between asteroids that were getting larger and more numerous. It was dangerous territory for a ship as big as his, but he was not going to let one human escape after causing so much damage to his reputation. Follow him, Vextar ordered. I want that captain's head, no matter what it costs. The war cruiser plunged deeper into the asteroid field, chasing the smaller ship through a maze of floating rocks. But Jake Morrison had been planning this moment. Since the chase began, and he was about to show the Zephyrin commander just how dangerous a cornered human could be. The chase through the asteroid field had been going on for 10 minutes when Jake Morrison saw exactly what he had been waiting for. Ahead of them, floating in the dark space between stars, was the largest asteroid in the entire field. It was the size of a small moon, with deep craters and jagged edges that had been carved by millions of years of cosmic impacts. Jake guided the Meridian's edge toward the massive rock, his enhanced engines allowing him to make impossible turns around smaller asteroids. Behind him, Commander Vextar's warcruiser followed like an angry beast, firing plasma bolts that lit up the darkness, but always missed their target. "Danny," Jake called over the communicator, "how are those engines holding up?" "Getting hot, Captain," came the reply from the secure section. "We can maybe do this for another 5 minutes before something melts." "That should be enough," Jake said. He looked at his navigation screen and smiled. Everything was falling into place exactly as he had planned. On the war cruiser's bridge, Vextar was becoming more furious with every passing second. His massive ship was built for open space combat, not for chasing smaller vessels through asteroid fields. Every few moments, the pilot had to change course to avoid crashing into floating rocks. "Sir," the weapons officer reported, "we have used 60% of our plasma cannon charges. If we continue firing at this rate, we will drain our main batteries." "I do not care," Vextar snarled. "Keep firing until that human ship is destroyed." Crixel stepped closer to his commander. "Sir, perhaps we should consider withdrawing. We have already lost over 100 Marines and 3 shuttles. The cost of this operation is becoming too high." Vextar turned on his second-in-command with murder in his yellow eyes. "Are you suggesting we run from a single cargo ship? That we let word spread through the galaxy that humans defeated a Zephyrin warcruiser? I am suggesting we live to fight another day," Crixal replied carefully. "No," Vextar said firmly. "We finish this here and now. I will not allow my reputation to be destroyed by some clever human with a few tricks." The war cruiser fired another volley at the cargo ship, but the smaller vessel twisted away at the last second. The plasma bolts struck the large asteroid ahead of them, sending chunks of rock flying in all directions. "Target is approaching the large asteroid," reported the tactical officer. "If we can corner him against the rock face, he will have nowhere to run." Vextar smiled for the first time in 20 minutes. "Perfect. Increase speed and cut off his escape routes. This ends now." Jake Morrison watched his pursuers getting closer and felt his heart rate increase. This was the most dangerous part of his plan. If he made even a small mistake, both ships would be destroyed, and the medical supplies would never reach the dying colonies. "Amy," he called, "start recording everything on all frequencies. I want the whole galaxy to see what happens next." "Already recording, Captain," Amy replied. "Every ship in 3 star systems is going to watch this." Jake guided his ship closer to the massive asteroid until he was flying just a few hundred meters above its cratered surface. The war cruiser followed, its bulk blocking out the stars behind them. Vextar was so focused on the chase that he did not notice what Jake was really doing. The cargo ship suddenly changed direction and flew directly toward the asteroid's surface. For a moment, it looked like Jake Morrison was going to crash his own vessel into the rock. But at the last second, he pulled up and skimmed along the asteroid's surface, using his enhanced engines to perform maneuvers that should have been impossible. "He is trying to escape around the asteroid," Vextar said. "Follow him. Do not let him break free." The war cruiser turned to pursue, its massive bulk struggling to match the cargo ship's agility. That was when Vextar realized his mistake. The asteroid was much larger than he had thought, and his ship was now flying through a narrow canyon between 2 rocky ridges. "Sir," the pilot called out in alarm, "we are too close to the surface. These canyons are too narrow for a ship our size." "Keep following," Vextar ordered. "We have him trapped." But Jake Morrison was not trapped. He was exactly where he wanted to be. The cargo ship flew through the canyon system with perfect precision, following a route that Jake had calculated in his head minutes earlier. Behind him, the war cruiser scraped against rocky walls as it tried to keep up. "Danny," Jake called. "Prepare to jettison cargo containers 7 through 12. Program them for delayed release on my command." "Captain, those containers hold medical supplies worth millions of credits," Danny protested. "Trust me," Jake replied. "I am not throwing them away." The Meridian's edge reached the end of the canyon system and burst into open space on the far side of the asteroid. Jake immediately cut his engines and spun the ship around to face the canyon mouth. Behind him, the war cruiser was still struggling through the narrow passage. "Now, Danny, release the containers." 6 large cargo containers ejected from the ship's hold and began floating in a carefully planned pattern. To anyone watching, it looked like Jake was abandoning his precious cargo to escape faster. Vexstar saw the floating containers and laughed with triumph. "The coward is jettisoning his cargo. Move in and collect those medical supplies. Then we will finish him." The war cruiser emerged from the canyon and approached the floating containers. Vexstar was so focused on claiming his prize that he did not notice the containers were moving in a very specific formation. "Sir," the tactical officer said suddenly, "those containers are not drifting randomly. They appear to be in some kind of pattern." Vexstar looked more closely at the display and felt his first stab of concern. The 6 containers were spread out in a perfect hexagon around his ship, each one exactly the same distance away. That was not how abandoned cargo should behave. Jake Morrison's voice came over the communication system, calm and clear. "Commander Vexstar, this is your last chance to surrender. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." Vexstar's laugh echoed through the bridge. "You think 6 cargo containers can threaten a war cruiser? You are even more foolish then." "I thought." "Those are not just cargo containers," Jake replied. "They are medical nanobots in concentrated form. Very useful for healing people. But in large quantities, they have some interesting side effects." "What are you talking about?" Vexstar demanded. Jake's voice carried a note of satisfaction. "Nanobots are designed to seek out and repair damaged biological tissue. But when they encounter certain alien biologies in massive concentrations, they can cause temporary paralysis instead of healing. I learned that during the war." Vexstar's eyes widened in horror as he understood what was about to happen. "You are bluffing. Medical supplies cannot be used as weapons." "Watch and learn," Jake said simply. He activated a remote control signal, and all 6 cargo containers exploded simultaneously. Billions of medical nanobots poured into space in a glittering cloud that quickly surrounded the war cruiser. The microscopic machines were designed to seek out life forms and begin immediate medical treatment. Within seconds, the nanobots had penetrated the war cruiser's hull through tiny gaps in the armor plating. They flooded the ship's atmosphere, searching for biological targets to heal. But when they encountered Zephyrin physiology, their programming interpreted the aliens' natural armor plates as damaged tissue that needed to be repaired. The nanobots immediately began working to fix the Zephyrins by breaking down their armor plates and flooding their nervous systems with healing compounds. For humans, this would have been beneficial. For Zephyrins, it was like being hit with a paralysis weapon. On the war cruiser's bridge, Vexstar felt his limbs becoming heavy and unresponsive. Around him, his crew members were collapsing at their stations as the nanobots did their work. Within minutes, every Zephyrin on the ship was conscious but unable to move. "Impossible," Vexstar whispered. His voice slurred as his tongue went numb. Jake Morrison's voice came through the speakers one final time. "You made 3 mistakes, Commander. First, you threatened innocent lives. Second, you underestimated human ingenuity. Third, you assumed that because we prefer peace, we do not know how to fight." The Meridian's edge approached the helpless war cruiser and extended docking arms. Jake and his crew boarded the alien vessel to find the entire crew paralyzed, but alive. The nanobots would wear off in a few hours. Leaving the Zephyrins unharmed but thoroughly defeated, Jake made his way to the bridge and looked down at Commander Vextar, who could only glare helplessly from his command chair. I am going to reprogram your ship's computers to broadcast a continuous identification signal. Every law enforcement agency in this sector will know exactly who you are and where you are at all times. Vextar tried to speak, but could only make weak sounds. The nanobots will wear off in about 6 hours, Jake continued. But by then, this entire incident will be broadcast across the galaxy. Every pirate and criminal will know that you were defeated by a single human cargo captain using medical supplies as weapons. Your reputation as a fearsome warrior is finished. Jake returned to his ship and undocked from the war cruiser. As the Meridian's Edge pulled away, he activated the ship's communication system one final time. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the merchant vessel Meridian's Edge. Let it be known throughout the galaxy that humans are peaceful traders who want nothing more than to help those in need.